So, what was the question again?
Let's start again because I was about to say varied variety.
I don't really know what to say to this one because it's quite
That's too niche even for me.
So I graduated in 2021 and didn't really know what to do afterwards. So I was kind of floating about for a year. I think at the actual time I applied, I was working on a farm. And then I kind of saw this internship. I thought it would be a good opportunity to apply for.
When I applied, I was just finishing up my undergraduate degree. I was sort of sitting, trying to figure out what comes next. I was thinking of doing a master's degree. I was thinking of sort of just applying straight for a job. I knew I sort of wanted to work in sort of the politics, policy space, but I wasn't 100% sure what that might mean. I was basically sort of scrolling through one of the job boards. I saw the internship program, had a bit of a sort of look into it, looked at what the IfG did and thought, yeah, this is a good match, seems like a good opportunity, and sent in my application.
I was about halfway through completing my master's in policy research, and I was at a point where I was looking for a career in public policy. I enjoyed my master's and I was just looking for any opportunity where I could start making contribution in that space. So I was thinking about the think tank sector, charities, and then when I saw the IfG internship, it pretty much fit the brief of what I wanted.
So when I applied, I just started doing my master's in public policy, and there was a careers newsletter that went round every month, and I saw there was an opportunity to work in the Institute for Government, and I thought, that's weird, what's that? And I clicked on the link, I did my research, and I thought, wow, an opportunity right in the heart of London, right next to Westminster, I should definitely go for that, so I did.
I'm not sure how I found out about IfG. I was just always aware of it. No, I don't know when I found out about IfG, but because I was studying politics, I imagine it came up in relation to something that I was doing, or maybe during my politics A-level. And I knew I wanted to apply because I'd done some kind of research assistant-y politics stuff while at university, and I'd really enjoyed studying politics. And I knew that I wanted to keep doing something similar while having some level of impact that I wasn't convinced I could get if I stayed in academia.
When I applied, I was working as a tutor teaching English in a school in North London. I first heard of the IfG, if memory serves, in 2016, obviously politically charged year, during which I was also transitioning to a degree in history and government from something completely unrelated. So it's fair to say that I was in the market for reliable and thorough analyses of the political landscape. So it didn't take me long to find the IfG, nor become an avid reader of its output, which is also why I applied. So I joined the public services team headed by Nick Davies. Broadly, the team looks at 4 public service areas: health, social care, criminal justice system, and education. We try and answer questions like how much money is being spent on these sectors, exactly where the money is going, whether policies the government is pursuing in these sectors are translating to better outcomes, if not, why, what kind of demand are these services facing, is the workforce big enough or of the right quality to be tackling that demand, that kind of thing.
I'm on the civil service and policy making team, so we look at how the civil service works and how it can be made more effective. So that might be looking at things like the skills of civil servants, but it might also be looking at the structures in place to make the civil service more accountable.
So I work on the minister's team, and there are sort of 3 strands to what we do, which I think has slightly more variety than some other teams. So we do some reactive work, which means, for example, when there is a reshuffle, I get to make a lot of charts. We do some long-term research work. So I'm working on a long-term project at the moment in a similar way that a lot of other IfG interns are. And finally, we kind of help run the IfG Academy, which is the kind of professional development and training side of the IfG for people working in and around politics.
So I joined the public bodies team. So that's the team looking at public bodies in the UK, which are organisations working in the public good across the UK, across the public sector, including NHS England or museums.
I'm part of the public finance team, and our team does anything revolving around UK public finances, if that's anything to do with tax and spending policy or general economic policy.
I joined the devolution team, and we've got sort of two separate strands of work, one of which focuses on subnational government in England, so things like combined authorities, metro mayors, and the other focuses on the devolved administrations in Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland. So it's a bit of a balance, a bit of a mix of things, and it's been a really good opportunity to explore something I was quite interested in previously and also learn new things about sort of the way government works in England.
There's no such thing really as a typical day. I think it really does depend on what's going on.
There's no such thing really as sort of a typical day.
There is no typical day at the IfG. How many times have you heard that one?
So a typical day might kind of vary depending on what we're working on more broadly. It might involve reading and putting together a literature review for a report. It might involve interviewing people who have experience or expertise in a particular subject. Or it might involve kind of digging through government transparency statistics to put together some data visualization for an explainer. Or if my team's got an event coming up, then we might even be putting together some questions to ask the panel.
Depending on sort of the needs of the day, I'd either sit through and analyse some data in Excel, perhaps make a chart, or I would sit in an interview with somebody we are interviewing for a project. I would then maybe go have lunch, talk to colleagues, and then in the afternoon I might follow a parliamentary debate, follow a committee hearing, or read through some papers from some other think tanks, sort of broaden my knowledge of our work.
A typical day can look very different depending on what is happening at the time for me. So to take this week as an example, on Tuesday there was a reshuffle. So a typical day looked like waiting for ministerial appointments to be announced, making some very rapid charts, and updating the IfG live blog. But that is definitely not a normal day, though increasingly perhaps in recent months. But so for example, on Monday, before anyone knew there was going to be a reshuffle, I made some edits to a transcript of Ministers Reflect interviews, which are the interviews we run with former ministers. I did some editing work on a research project that I'm working on about how ministers are supported by their officers. And I set up a lunch with a civil servant for later in the week as an interview for that project. So as you can tell, it can really vary.
For my money, it's great.
The IfG is great. Everyone loves the IfG.
I've really enjoyed working at the IfG. I think the people here are very friendly, they're very welcoming. You can have some really good and interesting discussions over lunch. The free lunches also do help a little bit.
There's quite a lot of opportunities for learning at the IfG, whether that's developing new skills, but also kind of learning about what everyone's doing in their different aspects of work.
It's a really fun and nice place to work. I think the size of IfG makes it a really pleasant place, especially to start your career, because you definitely know everyone fairly well, but it's not too small. And it's very nice having an intern cohort around you, because you're not typically working with other interns, but you have an inbuilt network of other interns in addition to the people that you're working with day to day.
I think obviously it's challenging and high standards and hard work are to be expected. But at the same time, I've never had an easier time settling into a place. Something that I put down almost entirely to the openness and approachability of the staff here. A benefit that is complemented in no small measure by the beauty and location of the office we get to come to work in every day.
In terms of what I've worked on, getting to do reshuffle live blogs and work on reactive things like that has always been a lot of fun. It always feels very exciting and like things are really happening around you. But on the slightly slower side, I've really enjoyed being involved in conducting Ministers Reflect interviews. You get to feel, I think, a bit like a part of some sort of history, and you're doing and it feels a bit more like academic research as well, because they're used as a source by actual academics. And it's always fun and interesting to hear ministers' reflections on their careers.
Quite early on in my time, the Supreme Court sort of considered whether or not the Scottish Parliament had the powers to hold a second independence referendum. This is something that I had a sort of bit of an interest in beforehand, and it was something that I was asked to sort of do a bit of work on for my team. So I went along physically to go to the Supreme Court, sat in the public gallery and listened to the hearing play out for the lawyers making their arguments.
As soon as I joined, there was a massive energy crisis, not just in the UK, but globally. And the first body of work that I started working on was looking at Ofgem, which is the energy regulator, and looking at how it could respond to the crisis of really high prices caused by the war in Ukraine, but also respond to challenges in the future, such as net zero. And I found it really interesting to be hearing about something in the news every day, and then working with the people that were trying to make that better.
Before you apply, get a good sense of what the IfG's unique position is in the think tank world and the kind of specific insight that we offer into a topic, because we do have quite a unique position, and I think that's something that sets us apart from quite a lot of other organisations.
I didn't think I was the right sort of person to be applying to the IfG because I thought I was a bit too old to be an intern. I hadn't done the classic do your undergrad and then go straight into policy work. I did my undergrad, then I did a stint working for another company, not necessarily policy related, and then I went and did my master's and then applied to the IfG. And that's just a different way of doing it, but I think that's a completely valid way, and I managed to get in.
It's also worth putting a lot of time before joining into thinking exactly what you want out of the internship, whether it's to continue working in think tanks or go to the civil service, charities, whatever it might be. Because in my experience, there are plenty of people who are more than happy to help you in achieving that goal alongside your work at the IfG.
I would say there is no right person to work at IfG, but make sure you take the time to really understand what we do and what you could learn and how you want to use it.
It doesn't matter necessarily on how long it took you to get here, I guess. If you're here and you think this is the right position for you, nothing should stop you applying. So.